What's up, everybody? JJ here with my thinking cap on. And we are going to talk about our age qualifiers. And I need to stand back a little farther so you guys can make sure you guys see my hat here. But this is ridiculous. I'm going to take, well, I'll leave it on for a minute. I don't know if you guys can see the screen. I know it's kind of hard. My markers, my chalk markers are dying. But these are mostly just notes for me because you're going to watch me be all animated as I talk you guys through this. So for those of you guys who qualify, congratulations. You guys get to now do 5 pretty challenging workouts. And those of you guys who are hoping to qualify maybe later this year at the second open or in age qualifier or in future years, I do recommend you guys try to attack this like you were doing the age qualifier, right? So just like you would if you were doing it, and not just doing a couple workouts and like, oh, in the next couple weeks, try to do it, at least each workout, maybe even repeat some of them over the period of 4 days so that you get a real sense for what it's going to feel like and how you perform. Take notes. It's good. It's still good practice. You can still gain experience from doing it that way, rather than if you don't have to have qualified this year. So it's really important that you still use this as an opportunity to challenge yourself and find out where you're at. So if you guys have any questions or comments and you're watching this live, go ahead and try to write it in there and I'll see if I can get to it. Shout out to like I said, to those of you guys who qualified. I know of at least 3 or 4 solid contenders, so pretty excited for you guys. And you can always email me directly too. Yeah, I know you guys. This is a big deal for you guys. So overall, 5 workouts, right? So like previous years, I think last year there was 4 workouts. They took your standing from the open to get that 5th scoring opportunity. What's great about the 5 workouts in my mind is this is going to be a better test. We're going to get 5 different data points. It really is going to punish people who have to repeat workouts to get their best score. So as you guys, if you've been following me for a while, you probably understand that I'm always promoting, especially in the open, you shouldn't make repeats as part of your core strategy. And the idea is that you should be good enough to where you can do the workout one time. Because in situations like this, or in another competition or the games, you get one shot, right? You don't get to go back and redo, test a strategy, or, oh, I feel like I could have done better, so I'll repeat it again in a couple days. Now in this case, with 5 workouts, and they're all pretty significant, if you could get away with doing each one twice, and I have a plan for that. But if you have to do every workout twice and some workouts 3 times, it's really going to punish you in the long run, right? So ultimately, if you've been taking notes and planning your training well and learning about your own capacity, then you should be able to hit this one out of the park the first time every time, and then maybe repeat 1 or 2 if you have to. If you are really close to making it, like I said, you should still plan on doing a second attempt. 6, 8, 15, 15, 30. So those are the time caps. What's fascinating about this is that 4 of these workouts are for time, which is pretty interesting when you think about it. Traditionally they use a lot more AMRAPs. I think that's really important for when you have large groups of people doing the open. Actually, before I jump into that, let me click on here real quick. I'm going to type in Todd McKinnon and Angel Venus, and who else? Sarah. All right. So the one workout, the shortest workout, 6-minute time cap, then an 8-minute AMRAP. So that one's going to be 8, and then 15, 15, 30. So when you actually look at a lot of the metcons that we do, even in the comp program, we do a lot of workouts that are in that 10, 8, 10, 15-minute range, and you can see why, because this is just the sort of the sport that we're in. We need to be able to go longer, and we need to be able to go shorter and heavier, but the bell curve shows that this is kind of the main event when it comes to these workouts. So being able to perform well in these time domains tends to pay off a little bit better than being a specialist in something like the long or the super heavy. So, oh my God, shoulders. So if you look at every one of these workouts, overhead squats and double unders, burpees, shoulder overhead muscle ups, thrusters, and chest to bars, another shoulder movement, and then snatches and strict handstand push-ups. These are all going to be these are all shoulder movements. So again, if you're repeating these workouts, it's going to be toast. Hopefully you've been taking care of your shoulders and doing a lot of prehab. That's going to, and having that mobility, that's really going to make this a lot easier to get through, especially if you do something more than once. You also want to make sure that you dial in your food and your rest. So you know, you should make sure that you're doing some movement after each workout to help speed up recovery. You need to be eating a ton of calories. Starting tonight, you know, like even if you did a workout or two tonight on Thursday, you know, you should be shoveling your face with food over the next couple of days. You're not going to gain any weight. It's going to help you recover and make sure that you're not bonking on any of these workouts or slowing down. All right, let's jump into it. Well, let's go over the kind of I'm actually going to break down. You guys probably have a hard time seeing this, but hopefully you did a workout on Thursday night. Not a big deal if you didn't. I'm going to assume that you did not. So there's many different ways to cut this up, but the way I figure is we do number 5 first, just because the shorter workout, it's not going to make you terribly sore. It's going to, you know, you can get it out of the way, and that way you can repeat it later. So we're going to get the power snatches and the strict hands and push-ups first, and then you might try a number 1 after that, depending on how much time you have that day. If you have all day to do this, you could do that. But you're definitely going to want to do number 2, right? So we want to get this other long one out of the way. And for most people, this is one that if you repeat, those burpees are going to tax your shoulders. They might make you a little bit sore, but they're not going to. It's not like the shoulder to overhead one. So you can get through it like this. This one's not going to affect the performance on this one. And when you repeat number 2, you'll probably go a little faster because you know what it feels like. Those longer workouts, it's easier once you've gotten to the end to realize I could have sped up, or I went too fast and I had to slow down. You know, so we do want to get that one done early so you can get a good repeat in. On Saturday, we can do number 3, shoulder overhead muscle ups, and number 4, the 8-minute AMRAP with the thrusters. To do that. Now, again, if your Saturday is more open and you have a lot more flexibility, maybe you do number 1 on that day. But I do want to point out that number 1 has multiple rounds of 35 overhead squats, and number 8 has 45 thrusters. So in the same day, that could be pretty brutal. So just keep that in mind, that you know you could easily do number 1 on this day because there's no squats in this muscle up shoulder overhead one. And then Sunday you would do number 1 again, and then either number 2 or number 5. So you would do the long one or the strict handstand push-up one. And on Monday that leaves another repeat for the muscle ups if you want to do the muscle up one again, and then any of the repeats that you want to do, right? So that way you can make sure that by Sunday you've got them all done, and you've repeated 1, 2, or 5, or both, or 2 of those, and then you can decide, okay, you know, I don't feel like number 4, for example. People should be able to get through that one and have a pretty set pace. It's pretty straightforward. But that's kind of the order that I think most people should do it in. But again, depending on your strengths and weaknesses, you might want to change it up. What I was looking at was the shoulders. You know, understanding that if your shoulders are blown up, it's going to be really hard to do the strict handstand push-ups. If your shoulders, the more blown up your shoulders are, the harder it's going to be to do the muscle up. So that's why, you know, we get this one out of the way when you're totally fresh with the strict handstand push-ups, and then we do the burpee one, which shouldn't tax your shoulders too much, and then we do the muscle up one the next day. So let's go into the workout. So for number 1, we've got this is the one with I think it's 15, 35. Let me make sure I get these numbers right. 15 deadlifts, 35 overhead squats, 90 double unders. 35 overhead squats, even at a light weight, is going to be the challenging part. This will be the hardest part of the workout. You know, so what you're going to want to do is get through the deadlifts unbroken, at least on the first round. Get that bar up overhead and try to do the narrow overhead squats. Now we are in the middle or finishing an overhead squat focus, which we're focusing a little more on strength, not as much volume, but that should get you comfortable in the overhead squat position. So what I want you guys to do is focus on being a little bit more narrow grip with the overhead squats, so that you can save the shoulders, right? Because the shoulders are what's going to fatigue. If you use a wide grip on the overhead squats, that's going to tax your shoulders a lot more. And so we want to make sure that we have that. If you can, try to go a little bit narrower than you normally would. The more stacked your arms are, the easier it's going to be to maintain that. The other thing is with double unders, you might want to break these up and keep your hands really close to save your shoulders. If you get really wide with your arms, it's going to blow your shoulders up. It's going to make the overhead squats a lot harder. But on this one, you're going to want to rest the bar on your back a few times. But with a set of 35, you might do 20, for example, and then just drop the bar. Just to give your shoulders and your arms a real rest. Because even resting on your back, you don't get the same amount of rest you would if you dropped it. But if you're somebody who could do 20 and then 15 with a short amount of rest, maybe just lower it to your back. You don't have to, and then take one arm, shake it out, take the other arm, shake it out, and then finish the 15. On the later rounds, again, dropping it. You're not paying a huge penalty there because it is a pretty light weight. It's 55 for the ladies, 75 for the men. Nothing too crazy. And then of course on that last round of double unders, just try to go big, right? Try to go for big sets. For the bar facing burpees in the row, I think it's really hard for people to pace burpees. Burpees are one of those movements that you can actually treat like running and rowing and anything that's sort of like an endurance type monostructural movement. You should watch the clock. Now, if you actually think about it from a timing standpoint, for 15, if you took about 30 seconds for the deadlifts and then 2 minutes per round on the overhead squats, and then 2 minutes for the double unders, that would have you finish at like 13.5 minutes. So I do expect some people to finish this in 10 minutes and then some people to get close to 15, but I would expect most of you guys to be able to do this one in under 15 minutes if you pace it like that. So same thing for the bar facing burpees. For a 5K row, 20 to 22 minutes isn't crazy, is pretty decent for most people. Women are a little bit slower, maybe in the 21 to 24 minute range, but we're only doing 4K. And so you think about a 30 minutes, if you did 2 minutes, if you did, it's 80 burpees. If you did 20 burpees every 2 minutes, or 20 burpees a minute, 20 burpees every 2 minutes, so 10 burpees a minute, that would be 8 minutes, right? So 10 burpees a minute is ridiculously slow. Most of you guys should be able to sustain something like 15, maybe 20 burpees per minute. 15 is probably more realistic depending on how big you are and how good you are at burpees. Shorter, smaller people should be able to go closer to 20 and sustain that. Bigger people should probably shoot for about 15 burpees, so that's about 6 minutes to do the burpees. And then you have a 4K row, not a 5K row. So I think a lot of people are going to finish this in that this whole thing in 23, 24 minutes up to maybe the 30 minute mark. But watch the clock and keep a steady pace. Try to use your arm. Don't try to use your arms too much. Save your shoulders for the later rounds of burpees and for all the other workouts. So if you can avoid doing the burpees with a big press out at the bottom, that's going to help. Any kind of burpees allowed, so you can step back, step up. You do need to do a 2-footed jump to clear, but 1 foot can land before the other. And then another thing that's interesting is is that if you do hit the time cap, what they say is that at time you finish your last pull, that's when the time stops. You have to finish your last pull and you have to let go of the handle. But the meters you get on that last pull, you wait until it stops, and that's what you count. So for those of you guys who might get time capped, just keep that in mind. But hopefully you guys all finish it under the time. Number 3, we've got the shoulder to the 4 muscle ups, and then I wrote this backwards. 4 muscle ups, and then 13 shoulder to overhead for 5 rounds, and then 4 muscle ups and 7 shoulder to overhead at a heavier weight. So one thing I want to point out on this one is that this is if you were to try to finish this, you're going to do 20 burpees the first time and another 20 burpees the same. So we're talking about 40 muscle ups. You're going to do 40 muscle ups in this workout if you finish it for time. So this is really a muscle up person workout. The weights are significant. We're talking about 13 per round times 5, so not quite 75 shoulder to overhead, and then 7 at a heavier weight. So I think a lot of people are going to get through that first 5 rounds, and then we're going to see when the muscle ups start to really struggle in the second round, and then we have the 125, 185 on the second set. And because of that, form and timing is going to be really important. I think a lot of people might try to really rush through the muscle ups and the shoulder to overhead, not really thinking about technique and efficiency. The problem with that is that you're gonna, not moving efficiently, not having good timing is really going to punish you on the later movements, especially on muscle ups, right? So as you start to blow up, those muscle ups get harder and harder because you start catching lower and lower. And if you start missing reps, then it becomes a real problem. So make sure that you're really deliberate with your form and your timing early on. You're not trying to rush. Just be very clean. We want to make sure you have a really big kip, really big glide kip. Try to catch really high in the ring so that you're not catching really deep, but you're catching high, and then you just have that press out at the top. And the same thing goes for the jerks. You don't want to push press these. You want to make sure that you're using as much legs as you can. You almost want to imagine like you can't use your arms at all. All you do is it's legs, and try to just think about that the whole time, so that you're using as much as your legs as possible, and you're saving your shoulders for the muscle ups and all the other workouts that we're doing this weekend. So I said pace for about 30 to 40 muscle ups. If you think about it, could you do 40 muscle ups in 15 minutes? You know, that for some people, that's a big stretch. And if you think about with the 60 something shoulder overhead plus another 35 shoulder overhead at heavier weights, this is going to be a challenging workout if you're not efficient with those muscle ups, and you're not keeping a slow, steady, clean pace in the beginning, instead of just rushing to get ahead. Oh, I got to hurry up and get ahead so I have more time for the later rounds. That's just going to punish you as you go. And a nice row here, all jerks. Make sure you're jerking it, right, as I mentioned. So for number 4, the thruster toes to bar cleans chest to bar workout. If you averaged a 2-minute pace, you would finish this workout. So you have 2 minutes to do 45 thrusters, 2 minutes for 45 toes to bar, 2 minutes for 45 cleans, and 2 minutes for 45 chest to bar. I think that's doable. I think some people are going to finish that and get back to the thrusters. Obviously, this is going to be a more smaller person workout. The weights aren't terribly heavy, so it's 65, 95. But you know, like I said, the shorter people are going to have an easier time with that. It's not going to be as hard as doing like a heavier weight or something like that. So you know, you want to try to think about that pace. You know, if you can do the thrusters a little bit faster than that, that's going to be good, and then you can, you know, get to the toes to bar. You want to think small rests, and usually it's small rests. But I would say on the cleans and the thrusters, if you can do longer sets. But just try to think about the short rest. If you're gonna rest, try not to rest very long. This is only an 8-minute workout, so you want to make sure that you keep your rest short. If you have to shorten your sets so that you can do more smaller rests, that's going to be good. One thing I'll point out about the cleans, they're really deliberate about saying that because this is a really lightweight clean. So if you can kind of muscle clean it, that's going to be good. But if you power clean it and then pop the weight off your shoulder into the next rep, that's a no rep. So make sure that you are cleaning and finishing the rep each time before it comes off. One other note on the toes to bar, you know, so the thrusters are thrusters, is a squat and an overhead movement. The toes to bar, cleans, and chest to bar are grip, right? So your grip's going to blow up. If you go for big sets of toes to bar, they tend to really tax your grip more than just about any other movement when you do those big ones. So I recommend doing smaller sets. You know, some people might think 3 sets of 15. I think doing, you know, sets of 10 or less, but then again, short rests is really going to help save your grip, and that's going to make the cleans easier, and then of course save your grip for the chest to bars at the end. I do recommend butterfly chest to bars on this one just because it's a faster cycle time. But again, if you are going to be, and that's one where you could push a little bit more in the bigger sets, because if you finish it, you're just going back to thrusters. So you might pace it a little bit so that you're covered for the thrusters, but you shouldn't pace it because your grip, you're probably not going to get back to toes to bar. And if you did, you've done a lot of thrusters, and so your grip's going to be somewhat recovered. Number 5, 30 snatches, 30 strict handstand push-ups. Now the key here is that power snatches are allowed. It's not a squat snatch. So make sure that you're power snatching. But with that, you really want to avoid press outs, no press outs, because we want to save the shoulders for the strict handstand push-ups. So as you do this, a lot of people, when they're doing something like Isabel, which is definitely something you want to look up. What is your Isabel time? Because this is Isabel weights. You know, what's your Isabel time? This is has a 6-minute time cap. So if you can do Isabel in 3 minutes or even 4 minutes, you're going to get to those strict handstand push-ups. You know, depending on your ability on strict handstand push-ups, if you can finish Isabel in 3 minutes, you have a good chance at finishing this workout. As long as you can do, again, if you did 3 minutes and then you did 10 strict handstand push-ups a minute, you'd finish at the time cap. But if you start pressing out, if you're snatching and you're pressing like a lot of people do when they're doing fast Isabel, then that pressing movement is going to make the shoulders more blown up. So this I actually recommend going a little bit wider. so that you have less total range of motion on the snatch, and then make sure you're catching the snatch with bent knees, right? So that you're actually catching with bent knees and locking the arms out, and you're not pressing out. So really big hip pop, and then really squat and get under and stand, and then really big hip pop, pop and get in, and don't press out. Don't do that muscle snatch, that Cuban snatch. I think it's a Cuban snatch when you. A couple of notes about the strict handstand push-ups. So only feet can touch the wall during the rep. You're not allowed to have your butt hit the wall. And it says during the reps. I don't know if that means on the way down you can touch, but again, your feet, you don't want your feet touching the wall or your butt touching the wall on the way down. And they do say hips open. So some people will kink at the hips and rest their butt against the wall. And you have to keep your butt off the wall and open hips, especially at the top, right? So at the top, again, you can't reach up with your feet and have your hips against the wall when you do that. Same standards as the open. They're using the box again on the ground. Make sure your hand, mark where your hands are going to go so you can put your hands there. One thing that you want to do on strict handstand push-ups is avoid those no reps. So make sure that you finish cleanly, and if you're really not sure, like even if you know you could do one more, but that's it, and you've still got 20 more reps to do, come off the wall. Rest for a second, unless it's the last few seconds of the workout of that 6-minute time cap. You want to rest so that you don't want to hit failure. It's not until the very end do you really want to push that. I think a lot of people will, shoulders fail very quickly, and so that they'll keep trying to grind out reps, and I gotta do 6 reps. I'm gonna do 6, 6, 6, and I need to make sure I finish. And so then they're that third round of 6s, they're grinding out the 6th rep instead of doing 4 or 5 and then resting and then doing another quick set of 4 or 5. That's going to be better to get to the end, and then on the last set you can really push it. I think that way you avoid getting a no rep, and you save yourself for later rounds. Woo! So I feel like I've been talking nonstop for 22 minutes. So I think that's it. I think this is, like I said, overall this is a really good open. I think, or a really good age qualifier. I like that they're doing more workouts. It makes you have to be more selective about which ones you repeat. It's going to really reward people who have taken care of themselves and don't have any nagging injuries that's really going to hammer them on these workouts. People who have good shoulder mobility and shoulder health are going to work through this. So if you guys have been following me and following kind of my recommendations, you guys know that you should be able to hit these workouts. And even on your second attempt, you might get a little bit better, which is really important if you're trying to qualify. But it's not going to be something that you really think about when it comes to. Sorry, I just got a text from one of the athletes competing. But you do the second one, and if you're going to qualify for the games, right? If you feel like you need to, or maybe the third attempt. But again, if you're somebody who has to do these things all the time, you can see how this is a really bad strategy, because chances are you're going to be really beat up. And then even if you do qualify for the next stage, now you're really at risk for injury after these workouts are over. Your training's going to be disrupted because you might have tweaked yourself, or you have to deload because of the intensity here, and that's going to give you less time to get prepared for the next stage. But that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And if you have any questions or comments, you can post them here or shoot them an email, and I'll try to answer them. Thanks a lot, guys, and thrive on.